JooYoung was born in Seoul, South Korea, and then immigrated to Concord, New Hampshire in 1982 by way of adoption. While completing her BFA at Massachusetts College of Art, and by the way, you're the second artist in a row we've had from Mass College of Art. We just had Steve Locke. She returned to South Korea and reunited with her birth family. Since receiving her MFA from Lesley University in Cambridge, Mass., Choi's artwork has been exhibited in venues such as Crystal Bridges, Akron Art Museum, CAM Houston, Project Row Houses, the Wing Luke Museum of the Asian Pacific American Experience in Seattle, and many, many more. She's received numerous grants from Arcadia, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Idea Fund, and she's also participated in many residencies, including Lawndale in Houston and the Harvester Artist Residency in Wichita, Kansas. Her work has been featured all over the place, numerous media groups, publications, museums, and galleries, and it's also been written about extensively. She's represented in Houston by Nancy Littlejohn Fine Art, and I'm just so excited to have you here, JooYoung. We can't wait to hear what you have to say, and I'll be back at the end to ask questions. So I wanted to ask everyone kind of tuning in and listening, if you have questions, please type them into the chat while you think of them, and then we'll get to them at the end. I kind of go chronologically through the questions, sort of. So type them in when they come up, and on to you now, JooYoung. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's today has been wonderful to be able to talk with artists about being passionate about, I don't know, problem solving, figuring out what they care about. I mean, today's been just so wonderful. So let's see here. I have my PowerPoint all set up, and thank you so much for letting me come here and share my work and my process with you today. And although I work with a broad range of media, my BFA and my master's are in painting and 2D visual art, and I've always kind of felt that painting is the foundation of what I do. So to begin with, I'm going to share with you some examples of past works and projects so you can get a feel for my work. So let's see if this works. So this is one of my paintings, Quantum Soup, Spacian and Plexus. All there is that is real is the friendship that two can share. And those are lyrics from one of my favorite movies, The Wiz. And here's another one of my paintings, Magna Scotia is the fox, and Magna Scotia translates to Great Scott, Back to the Future, and she is a time traveling superhero. And this one is The Great Pretender. And if you can find the letters in there, they're lyrics from the song The Great Pretender. Also, I create video art. So this is a still from C.S. Watson and the Cause presents Begin Transmission to the Earth. And this was one of the first elaborate video art piece that I made, and I'll be showing you some of that. And here's a still from another video art piece called Journey Vision Part 1 and 2. I also create video art sculptures called paracosmic viewing stations. And these two machines are known as the Journey Vision 5000 model.
Hey, JooYoung, can I interrupt you really quickly? Yeah. Is it possible to enlarge the images so that we can, because on our screens, they're just appearing very small?
Oh,
I wonder if you can, can you full screen the presentation that you're using? If not, that's okay. I can still see them, but I just think they could be bigger.
Let me see. Am I sharing the?
You are sharing your screen. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Let me see if, I don't know if I can enlarge.
Okay, that's okay. If you can't. No. I think you'd have to full screen the presentation. Don't worry about it. I just thought I'd ask. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. Are you seeing the gray and white screen, or are you seeing just a white screen?
I see your desktop, everything behind the presentation, as well as it looks like it's in speaker view.
Yeah, that's the wrong screen.
I think you need to do slideshow.
Oh, well, I have it on a separate screen setup. So
Okay.
I thought it was, how do I switch which screen it's showing?
Marcus.
Mm,
Hi, so I would just try to re-screen share again, and then look for the screen that's just the slides. There we go. Yeah, yeah.
there we go.
Perfect.
Yes.
And sorry that everyone had to read my notes. I get a little nervous or I'll start to get distracted. So I try to keep it so then I'll make sure I get through all of them. Let me see if I notice now. Okay, all right. Is that all set up right? Okay.
It's
So
perfect.
okay, awesome.
Wonderful.
Let's see here. So yeah, so these are the Journey Vision 5000 models, and I've done some other ones. And the cool thing is that people who end up having one of these in their home, they have a lifetime subscription to Cosmic Womb videos. So over the years, I can send them extra videos to add to their machines. So the goal is someday they will have 24 hours of just what you would see if you were in my imaginary world. So I also do large scale sculpture, and I think this one is around 8 or 9 feet tall. And this had a community involvement portion to the project where people were invited to come to my studio and learn how to make felt flowers. And they created a flower that represented someone who made them feel unconditionally loved, or made them feel like they were enough and they could add it to the garden. And I'm happy to announce that the piece has been purchased by Crystal Bridges. And so all of these people's flowers, they now have a work of art that's part of the permanent collection at Crystal Bridges. And if they have, children and grandchildren, they can go back there and be able to see this work of art being cared for by the museum, which is, I think, kind of really great. This was the first large scale sculpture that I ever made. Quite an ambitious piece, and it was super fun to make. And right around the time that I was trying to figure out how to make these sculptures, I got approached by Project Row Houses, and they were interested in having me do an installation. So around the same time that I was creating my first large scale sculpture piece, I got to do my first large scale installation, which was really cool. And I decided to use the same characters. So when the pieces were shown in Houston, we got to see the same starry polka dotted character named Spacia Tanno fighting off an evil villainess named Lady Madness over at Lawndale. And then you would go to Project Row Houses, and she was actually taking care of this, she was rescuing this other character who is of the same race as her. They're called the Black Stars. They're the most powerful sentient stars in the universe. Rescued the star, and then people in the Project Row House area or Houston abroad could come and help heal this Black Star who had fallen from the sky. So with all of the different processes and things that I'm making, the studio gets really busy. So I was trying to find a way to show you all the different things that I'm up to, between making costumes, we're doing woodworking, composing music, and also you can see over here, also teaching. Currently, because of the pandemic, we can't work together, but I've been teaching the same child since he was 7, and he's 13 now, and we've done painting, video editing, and he's even directed stuff. Well, he's directed me around with my puppets. So and then on top of that, also I do animation, a lot of hand-drawn work, and then testing out my puppets. So you'll see in the center us testing out Pound Cake Man at Denny's. Let's see if I can get it to play. And there's something about, like, I can't bring my paintings to Denny's, but there's something really special when I can bring a character from my paintings to the diner, and the waitstaff will be giving him hugs and high fives. And I don't know, you start to learn more about, or I start to learn more about my work when I'm able to share it in this very accessible way. So, instead of spending an hour trying to describe my imaginary world to you, I gave myself the challenge a few years ago to create a video that explains one of the original narratives that helped kind of construct the cosmic womb. And so what I wanted to do was see if I could tell a story about the cosmic womb and explain it and show a perfect day in the cosmic womb in around 2 minutes. And so this little video kind of gives you an idea about my imaginary world. Can anyone hear me? Begin transmission to you. My name is Watson and I'm from your planet, but I teleported into space. See us floating in the cosmic room. A place for me and a place for you. See us floating in the cosmic room. A place for me and a place for you. My name is C.S. Watson, royal artist and historian of the cosmic womb. This is Rainbow Rabbit, my faithful friend. With the help of my mentor, Pleasure Vision, I became Cosmic Creator. Cosmic Alchemy, activate! With the help of the Tuplets and our animal friends, we protect the cosmic womb from the Parion King and his many minions. Join us for another wonderful adventure. You won't want to miss it. See us floating in the cosmic room, a place for me and a place for you. See us floating in the cosmic room, a place for me and a place for you. And so along with the, let me see here, I'll move this here. So along with video art, I've also been able to have these wonderful opportunities to share the work in through interactive projects. So a few years ago, I did a project called the Snow People Project, and I created a narrative also based within the cosmic womb mythos about a community of snow people who learned how to not melt, and they wanted to go to the hottest place on Earth. So they were going to go to the sun, but then their king warmly explained that the sun is actually very boring. But Houston, Texas during the summer is as hot as the sun, but has a rich cultural landscape. So they decided that they consulted with me, the artist JooYoung Choi, and Queen Kiok, who you see on the screen, that they wanted to take this special exploration vacation. So I applied for an Idea Fund grant to make this all possible for the snow people. And this grant helped us manufacture a bunch of these snow people and also pay for them to be delivered to the houses of people who applied to be part of the project. Let's see here. So here we are. Here I am delivering and some of the snow people. And the cool thing was I talked with submittable.com, and they actually sponsored the project by offering their services free of charge, and they helped us with setting it all up. And we got a panel of curators and artists who reviewed all of the applications from the families, and we chose who would be able to have one. And it was mostly, we chose all the children. If you had a kid, I actually made more snow people to make sure all the kids had them. And they got to spend their week with their snow person, and their only requirement was to take a picture every day of themselves with their snow person. So all the snow people on Snow People Island could check in on social media on Facebook and see what their friends on Earth were doing. And you can actually go to the Facebook Snow People Island site. It's still up, and I still get, it still gets likes and ads, and people follow it. And it's just a beautiful kind of connection of all these people coming together to take care of these frozen alien dweller explorers. Other projects that I've done was I got to bring Queen Kiok to Kansas and to participate in a parade to help find some lost dinosaurs. And so I found out that there was this rock concert happening, and I thought, like, instead of having the installation inside of a building, why don't we just like use a tent, and then we can put it in a space that maybe families who wouldn't go to the museum, they would come here. So we just installed the installation inside the tent, and then like help show people how they could help participate in creating their own flowers. And we created these compass quilts for the dinosaurs so they wouldn't get lost anymore. And Queen Kiok got into the Kansas paper, which was fun. We also FedExed all of the puppets to Kansas, and for the parade, volunteers could come and learn how to puppeteer and give people in the crowd high fives with my puppets. So as I was working on this talk, I started to think about, where does this, what inspired all of this? Why would someone spend so much time, like, I don't know, making puppets and dinosaurs? And why would creativity in the material form be so important? And so I kind of went back to as early as I could. So this is kind of one of my earliest photos. Like when you're adopted, they have an image and you have a number. And so I was adopted from Seoul, South Korea. And I was adopted to a family in Concord, New Hampshire. And I was I would say a pretty creative kid. I was always making things and drawing. These are some of my drawings and stories. Like before I could even write, I'd dictate to like my babysitter and they would write it, and then I draw the pictures. I was also the first Asian Dorothy in my hometown to perform songs from The Wizard of Oz for a community variety show. And I just loved dressing up and pretending to be all these magical people. So I was a pretty jolly kid. You'd give me a bagel and I'm happy. And one thing when I was going through some images is I noticed that I was like fascinated by these toy phones where you could dial in and like talk to Smurfs or Sesame Street characters. And I was wondering if, like, for this talk, if I could figure out like, why was I so fixated on these phones? And was there any connection to it with my motivation for creating art? And then I remembered that when I was little in kindergarten, I had I learned about this alien, and my adoptive, so how do I put this? So I learned that I was an alien because my adoptive mother explained that I was a naturalized alien. And I thought that that was weird because I thought, what's so unnatural about me before I was an American citizen? And my adoptive sister kind of teased me about being an alien. And I think it kind of hurt until I learned about this special alien called E.T. And I had an E.T. book and I'd bring it to kindergarten. And so I was re-looking at the book, and there's this part in it where the alien E.T. So this is a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen E.T., you should just mute me for till the aliens are off the screen. In the book, an alien is very sick and he has befriended a boy named Elliot. And Elliot says to the alien, "I'll believe in you all my life. Every day, E.T., I love you." Elliot thinks that E.T. is near death or dead and starts to leave E.T. Suddenly, E.T. opens his eyes and he says, "E.T., phone home." And Elliot responds and he like exclaims, "Ha, he's alive." And I think that this phrase really moved me as a child, that somehow speaking your truth, what you want to do, you want to connect with home. Being able to say it aloud could save your life. In the story, E.T. gets to go home, and I think the silence around my adoption, the fear of hurting my family's feelings for wanting to know who I am, made a kind of cave inside of my heart, a place where a person cannot help but feel lonely. Luckily, when I was being creative, I didn't have time to really think about being lonely. I just didn't feel it as much. And so, you know, I just filled all my time with being creative. I made movies with my friends. I participated in these cheesy musicals at school. I learned how to compose music and play piano. But I think that there was always just this part of me that kind of felt alone. I still felt like an alien, and just hopelessly different when you're living in a place like Concord, New Hampshire. This is my high school graduation photo. But luckily, so after I got done graduating from high school, I spent a semester studying piano at Berklee College of Music, and then I left school. I realized it wasn't for me to just keep playing other people's music. So I began working at an organization focusing on anti-racism and social justice, and it completely changed my life. And it helped me see that maybe the things that I felt and thought weren't so bad or hurtful, or I shouldn't be ashamed of them, and that maybe I actually had some good ideas to share. And that's when I started deciding to paint and making art for fun, and then took some community college classes, and then I applied to mass art. Luckily, they took me in, and I loved mass art. I remember it would get so cold there that sometimes I would have to wear snow pants, so then I could stay there and paint, and everyone could hear me in the hallways because my snow pants would make like a whoosh 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 noise. But I took pride in it because the freedom to just be able to make whatever I want was really special. The one thing that I wanted to make that I couldn't do a portrait of my birth parents, and so I decided that even if I didn't know what they accurately looked like, I just decide what they would look like. And that became kind of a major focus for me in undergrad, was working through these issues of adoption. And so I made this painting called Green Light Go, Red Light Stop. And I was trying to really capture what it felt like to be adopted, and to almost like you're trying to put all these puzzle pieces together. And the year after I made this, I went to Korea, and I reunited with my birth father. And I was actually kind of shocked how similar like his jawline was to the painting, because I didn't know what he looked like. And even his hair, he like swoops it to the side. And I was surprised, and he just looked at me and like smiled and was like, well, of course it looks like me, because I'm your father and you're my daughter. Of course you know how to paint me. And so after I met my dad, I found out that I had a little sister, and to this day we stay in touch, and it's wonderful. I also found out that I have an awesome stepmother and cousins, and just a great family. And I found a bunch of old photos of my birth father and found out that he was just as stylish of a unique dresser as I was when we were young. So that was kind of cool to find out that it ran in the family. And I've been able to visit many times, and it's just such a gift. On my first trip, though, I asked him about my birth mother, and he said that he had lost contact with her and that they never married. And and he said, next year, if you come back, we'll go to her island and we'll find her. And I don't know, I went back to America, and I felt bad that she never got a chance to marry my dad, even though they loved each other. And so I decided that I would paint a wedding dress for her, and even if I didn't know what she looked like, I would just guess. And so this was the painting I had made of her. And then the next year I went back to Korea to study language on scholarship, and I found her, and this is what she wore to the first time we met. And I was just surprised that she even pulled her hair back in a loose bun the same way, and had that busy shirt on that was so similar to the one in the painting. And so this is her actual wedding dress. Once we got a chance to, I went to her house, and I got to go through all of her old photos and see so much of her life. And so my family, I had so much family. I found out that I had two brothers on my mom's side, and I had two stepsisters and a little sister, and cousins and aunts and uncles, and most of my family was very creative. They all had creative jobs, and it was amazing. And also I I had to show you this very creative outfit that my birth father decided to send me a picture of. He's learned how to text me images of his fashion statements lately. So I think that, I mean, it was so exciting to meet my family. The only thing was, is that most of my work was focused on this desire to know who I was and about this void. And so it was like, now what am I going to paint about, you know? And so I started to realize that there was this psychological space in between, say, like Concord, New Hampshire and Korea. And over the years, you know, to cope with this loss of not knowing, I had kind of built a kingdom of creativity in between these two zones in my mind. And, you know, I filled it with animation, with cartoons, with Marvel Comics, television, The Wizard of Oz, my favorite movie, Roger Rabbit, The Muppets. I mean, I filled it with everything that could make me feel good. And so when I decided that I wanted to be a working artist and go to grad school, I decided that I would just roll with it and just use this world that was given to me by my younger self, and I would just help it grow and become something grand. And so in grad school, with the help of my mentors, Sam Keith, who The Max is a highly influential comic book on my life because it was an introduction to world building. Stuart Diamond, Laurel Sparks, Aaron Johnson, Ambreen Butt, Tonia Pesos, Chie Fueki were extraordinary mentors and continue to be. And of course, my husband has been such a supportive person in my life when it comes to world building, and having each other to share growing worlds has been such a gift. So, there's a map of the cosmic womb. So you can kind of see, then I made that during grad school so I could start to really see it every day and believe in it. So this is just, I'm gonna just play a portion of this, and it will give you an idea of some of the different landscapes in the cosmic womb and show you how someone could get to the cosmic womb. There's like a million ways to get there, but this is one way.
All of us congratulate in their great work.
JooYoung Choi.
Why don't you listen to their hearts and tell me what you hear? Breathe. Breathe. Shh. Breathe.
Yes, Watson, 13 seconds to curtain. Stand by, Miss Watson.
13 seconds.
Yep, 13 seconds.
13 seconds?
Got anything that's right?
13 seconds.
Giving you the 13 seconds.
13 seconds.
13 seconds.
13 seconds. 13 seconds.
13 seconds.
13 seconds. Last week you gave me at least a minute.
We've had to save every second that we can. Most of our clocks are on vacation, and the rest of them are on strike.
Oh no.
When using strike, team leader refusal to work organized by a body of employees as a form of protest, typically in an attempt to gain a concession or concessions from their employer?
Nope.
Hey, Uncle Sauce, pretty eloquent, but when I say striker, I mean strike.
Hit stuff. Yeah, that's what we want to do.
Oh.
We want to break your face.
Okay, so when you say strike, you mean...
What an untimely situation.
I'm all right.
Are you sure?
Yup.
I don't know, you don't look so good. Are you sure you're in it?
Yup.
Okay, well, on the show. Oop. And so actually the other portion of that, if you want to, just let me know and I can send you a link so y'all can have access to the rest of the videos. Actually, if you want access to a bunch of them, I'm happy to share any of the videos we don't have time to show today. So after I kind of started to develop what the world would look like, it seems that the narratives became even more complex and characters became more developed and conflicts happened. And it seemed like it was just overbrimming for the need for some epic battles to happen. And I had a good friend in elementary school that would make these amazing battle drawings of beavers fighting, like throwing stuff at each other, all these cartoon beavers. And I always wished that I could make cool battle drawings, but I just never thought I could. So I decided that was what I needed to learn how to do, was do the thing I didn't think I could. So I started to gather up information about illustrators and painters that I thought achieved the kind of things I wanted to in my battle painting. So Jack Kirby is one of my favorite comic book artists, and I love how his compositions are both locked, but they evoke a dynamic movement at the same time. So I looked at a ton of his work. At the same time, I started looking at Mughal miniatures, and because they are amazing. And cello. And I came across a book of these Japanese Russian war prints. And I found it really interesting how they were able to make a war or battle look so lyrical and organized, and that the gravity in these prints just seems so strange and interesting. And so here was my first attempt at a battle painting. Let's see. And from there, it just kind of has snowballed where I mean, I love making these epic kind of battle paintings. And this is the most recent one that I've done. This one isn't as much of a battle. There's not a lot of people being thrown around. But... So this painting actually features a group of protectors from the Veritas Circle, kind of protectors of goodness, helping save Spacia Tanno, which we've seen sculptures of this character in her time of need after a battle. And that got me thinking about the consequences of war and violence, and about families that are separated from one another because of war or for other reasons. And I wanted to talk about the separation between me and my birth father and our reunion and the struggle that we went through to reunite. There's just a lot of different things that I was kind of considering at the time. And so I thought, why don't we start with just a character that you're interested in? Let's look at trying to personify my birth father as one of the characters in my world. So a few years ago, I made this silly animation of a character on my iPad named Pound Cake Man. And my birth father had been a boxer when he was younger. So I thought, oh, there's something about this character that kind of reminds me of him. So here is just, it's just a little doodle. And so I started to work on a story about Pound Cake Man, the ex-boxer, single dad from outer space who was tricked by an evil scientist who plucked the memory of him having a daughter out of his mind. And so I translated the animation into this painting. And so this is a point where you can kind of see, let's see here, if you can see my mouse cursor, there is this woman up in the upper right-hand corner. Her name is Blue, and she's a professional imaginary friend. And she went to Pound Cake Man and helped him remember that he was a dad. And he just starts running as fast as he can to go find his daughter, Emma Pound Cake Girl. And if you can see, there's kind of pink letters in the background, and they say, discovering truth will make me free, which is one of my favorite lines from a Mr. Rogers song. So after creating this painting, I wanted to see what Pound Cake Man would look like if he was created in scale 3D. So that's what he looks like when he's in scale in 3D, and that's what his daughter looks like. And so that just kind of grew into a full installation, which of sculpture, which was at the Art Museum of Southeast Texas. And the narrative went that the Queen of the Cosmic Womb contacted me, and that all of these families that had been separated because of all these intergalactic battles needed a safe house where they could reunite, a reunion center. And so we asked the Art Museum of Southeast Texas if we could install one of these reunion center portals. And these special sentient beds, the one that you see in this image is named Pom Pom Thunder. They're able to travel on a super highway of dreams and find all of these disconnected family members, and then go through the portal and bring them here. And a lot of those white dots that you see on the ground in this kind of reflection pool of quantum soup, we got blacklight ink, and people could write down, the show was called Big Time Dreaming in the Age of Uncertainty. And so people were able to write down their big time dream and add it to fuel this super highway of dreams. And we also had black light flashlights so people could go around and read other people's big time dreaming, their big wish for their life. And it was like it was a really special time. And so here are some close-ups of some of the characters. And there's C.S. Watson the first time I created her with clay and self-sculpture. And this is Resilient Heart and Everlasting Spirit, her daughter, who she was reunited with at AMSAT. So since then, I started thinking about, so there's this reunion narrative. I started thinking about people who weren't able to reunite with their families. They're not able to find them because they're separated because of tragedy or racist laws that put children in cages, or birth families that can't reunite with your children. I wanted to make a story about children who cannot find their parents and how they cope with that. And so for over a year now, I've been working on a film project called Spectra Force 5 Infinite Pi Delivery Service. And during this intergalactic war, some planets were destroyed, and the life force inside of them was stolen. And so each of these children, they came from families, or they came from planets that were destroyed. But there's this thing that if you can find the heart source, the heart song energy, which I have a heart song right here. Let's see. So this is what a heart song looks like, but it's much bigger because it's the core of the planet. If you can find this, you can bring the planet back together. And so these characters were supposed to come together and search the universe and find them and restore their homes. But to make a living, they have an infinite pie delivery service where they deliver these sentient pies to people that talk, and they're kind of like motivational speakers, I guess, and they just remind people that they are enough just as they are, and they don't have to fight for their slice of the pie, because everyone has their own pie and their own path and their own life to live. So why fight over a slice? And so I did thousands of storyboards for this and wrote like a full script. And then I created an animatic, which is an hour and 40 minutes long, which is available on YouTube for folks that want to watch it. And then from there, I had planned to have humans be in this project, but because of the pandemic, ended up switching to puppets. And then I just play a bunch of roles. Let's see, but the voices, I reached out to a bunch of different people. I also did interviews with women of color, girls of color, intersex, non-binary, transgender, folk of color, about representation in sci-fi fantasy and what they want to see, what they don't think is helpful for them, and kind of tallied up all of their information into like one big research log, and then kind of referenced that while I was working on developing the script. And then from there, I found people who shared the same identity as the puppets to voice the characters. And it's been an extraordinary process because I got to meet all these really great people. And so all of them did their voices on their cell phones or through their computers and sent them here. So there's one person all the way out in England, people from Massachusetts, Texas, all different ages. Is really cool. And I think that one of the things that has become so important to me in my family, like my nieces and my cousin-in-law's children, is I'm realizing like I know how much the videos I made where I got to see people who look like me, the videos I showed earlier where I got to see Asian people who looked like me be superheroes, how that changed my life. And now that I have these extraordinary nieces, I want to make media that will let them know that they're extraordinary. And I noticed one of the times I hung out with them, they were fascinated by my hair. And I realized I wanted to make puppets that had all different types of curly hair so they would know how beautiful their hair is. So there's so much more writing on this project. It's really special to me. And that I want it to be part of our family legacy. So these are some of the puppets that I've been creating. And this is Captain Volcano. This is Twist. And so the person who is voicing this character also has a prosthetic leg, and the prosthetic leg design was actually inspired by a real life hero, breast cancer survivor, who also has had to get a prosthetic leg, and shares her story and is just extraordinary. And we've been in conversation, and I've been showing her all of the images of the puppet, and the person who did the voice did an extraordinary job. So usually I have a lot of help, but these days, because of the pandemic, I haven't had this team of extraordinary people coming to visit. And it's usually I put a call out on social media, and then people can just come to my studio and I'll teach you how to sew, and we can have a sewing circle, or we can do puppets together. So it's just something to look forward to once things get better. But luckily, my student Akshay, right before the pandemic, I wrote him a part in the project, and we met the day before they asked us to go on lockdown. So he got into the film, and so he's an intergalactic talk show host interviewing my 19-year-old cat. And so most of the puppets have been created by me here at the studio, and I've gotten a lot of work done, so it's always good. And I just wanted to show you a few of the sets. So this is what it looks like. And then this is what it looks like once I put it through Photoshop. And then also I've been finding a way to collaborate with someone with my assistant, where I create paintings, and then they have fun Legoing the parts together, my sculptures together, to create these kind of backgrounds and backdrops based on my animatics. So hopefully I'm able to stay in the vein of the type of media that inspired me, and to create new things to share. Hopefully this will be done in a few months, so I'll have lots to share with you. Lastly, I just wanted to show really quickly, if you are on Instagram, I post progress videos so you can start to see some of the different methods and ways that I make things. And a lot of this is not particularly that fancy. I don't know much about how to do CGI, so if I can do it, anyone can. So all it is clay, tin foil, some twigs from outside, and white cardboard filmed on a turntable, and then just change the colors through the computer. So, and lastly, so this video is 4 minutes long, and no one has seen this yet in entirety until today, so I'm excited to share it with you. This is about the first 4 minutes of the Spectre Force 5 project, and here we go.
Disaster strikes as the Hillegash lives up to its title as the terrible truth eater, devouring 10 libraries in one day. This and more at 7 on Channel 7 Veritas News. Wow!
You know, the Hillegash wasn't always called the Truth Eater. It lived long ago by another name, in a time before any truth had been buried or hidden or silenced. But then something terrible happened to the Hillegash. Something so sad that even the thought of it could make snowfall during the summertime. And before the beast could cry out, the truth was plucked from her heart, leaving behind a tiny void. And ever since, she's tried to fill it by eating the truths of others, silencing them as she was once silenced. But no matter how many unspoken truths and untold stories she ate, the void in her heart grew bigger and her hunger became insatiable.
JooYoung, do Hillegashes eat potato rocks?
That monster could try to eat me, but I'd never let her.
Being brave is hard for someone little like me. I get scared.
Admitting you're scared is the first step in becoming very courageous.
In that case, I imagine that one day I will be quite brave, because I often admit to being fearful of a great many things.
You know, that reminds me of an Avasonic tale.
About Spectre Force 5?
Bingo.
Brava, Laga Wazir, Paraza, Zik Trova, Sabacha, Nanava, Yo Yukti Bla English.
This is a gypsy.
Razivo, Nopin Nopin, no no, Jojo.
Zonini.
One time I ate about 400 marbles before I realized that they weren't fancy grapes. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm looking for a like partner who can accept a bear like me. A bear who can't always tell the difference between marbles and grapes.
The police speakometer is fully operational.
What? How long have we been live?
And now a message from the president of Polyspeak Incorporated.
My name is Pancake Man, co-creator of the Poly Speak Omelet. I want to let you know that the Poly Speak Omelet only translates those who wish to be dubbed. Others prefer subtitles, and some don't speak with their voice. They might communicate with their hands, a computer, or even telepathy. And some people, you have no idea what they say.
Meow, 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 meow.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much. It's so great to share this with you.
JooYoung, that was terrific. I feel energized just from having watched it. I personally have so many questions that I want to ask you, but I'm going to start off with a student question that I think makes a lot of sense after what we just watched. And is, do you ever plan on working with virtual reality technologies so that the public can enter your cosmic world?
Oh, so when they put the thing on their head and then you think you can see that you're in another
I think that's what, yes.
I would love that. Actually, my assistant, Zachary, they are knowledgeable about this virtual reality. So we've talked about it before. And I wanted to make a video game where you just run around and high five my puppets. Like, so you're just running around trees and high fiving each other. And if you high five enough people, I don't know, you get a prize or something.
I have two questions from that. First of all, everything's so optimistic. Like the idea of running around high-fiving your puppets just feels like for the viewer, the person participating would be such a rush. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, you have such a positive attitude and there's so much optimism in your work. And if you could just tell us a little more about that and if that's difficult to maintain, because it feels like even in challenging events, there's still like this thread of optimism.
Yeah, I think that staying motivated, staying optimistic, or having faith, for me in my purpose, what I can do with my art, and it's like you can't just do it once and then it's over. It's something that you have to constantly renew.
Right.
And learn to embrace that part of the process where you sit down and for me, it's sitting down sometimes and just writing about like, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? Why do I care about this? And it's what was it? Someone said like motivation is like bathing. You can't just do it once and then think it's over, or eating, you can't just do it once. And
right.
And I think that we deserve it to nourish ourselves in that way and to recognize how what we do can make an impact on other people's lives and on our own life, and take stock of that, like who we are, because of, at least for me, I noticed like there's things that I wasn't confident about until I started becoming an artist, and it helped me see that maybe I had some good ideas, or I could do things that I didn't think that I could do, so.
One of the questions that someone just texted me that I think is really interesting, I kind of know the answer because I follow you on social media, but do you tune in to everything going on in our crazy world, or do you tend to try to block it out in order to keep your work going?
I've been trying to be more conscious of how much time that there are moments, it's like my junk food that I will watch. Right. A lot of I got fascinated with late night shows for a while, and hence having my student play this late night talk show host from outer space, and I got to play a role like that in one of my other side projects, because it was the only way I could take in the news was through humor, because it was right. Too disappointing. But like the battle paintings, I was listening to NPR at the time, and there was some terrible stuff happening on the news, and I was able to process it through painting and then listening listening to it on the radio. So I think it's, I can't tune it all out because it is happening.
Right.
It's just having balance. It's like understanding when are you getting overwhelmed and when is it going to stop you from being creative? You know, like when do you need to recharge? You know.
I do love the way that you take what's going on in the world and you put it into something that feels very much like sunlight and optimism and stuff. And it's, I feel energized when I see your work. So that's really nice. One question, can you talk a little bit about, you've mentioned your assistants, and like, tell us a little bit about how you use them in your process of making work? Like who's in your studio and how does it all happen?
Oh, well, a lot of times I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just kind of have an eye out for good people that you can make feel good and they make you feel good, so it's gonna work. Actually, my husband's car got hit a few years ago, just like someone rammed into the side, so it had to be fixed. And I was working on a painting that I was struggling with, and it had a blue and a certain type of tile floor, a certain type of furniture. And I went to the body shop down the street, and it looked almost exactly like the background in the painting I was struggling with. And I pulled it out and I showed it to Marcy, and the lady who owns the place with her husband. And I said, what's this look like? And she's like, it looks like our office. I was like, you don't know me, right? And so we became buddies. And then she said that her son in high school needed a job. And so I said, well, why doesn't he just come to Lawndale? I have a residency there and I can pay him and I'll teach him how to do stuff. And we just had a wonderful time. And, you know, now he has a baby child and, you know, like he's got a life and stuff, but I always, whenever I think of an opportunity that we can be involved in each other's lives, I go for it. So I think it's just finding ways that like the time that people spend with you is going to be of benefit to them as well. And most of it is volunteer based. I've really lucked out where it's like putting out posts and just asking people. At first, like I tried to pay everybody because I didn't know what and then someone just said, you know, I come here for free because you're teaching me how to sew, like you're teaching, and I actually want to hang out with you. And I was like, oh, that's good because I don't know how much I can do. And so then I started like getting kids snacks, and it was just like people would come and we'd eat like goldfish and sew together. And it was like, oh, this is so great because I have so much work to do and I still want to see my friends. And then they're all a part of it. So whenever we pull out a sculpture, I'm like, I know who did that patch, or I know who made that flower, and they're in the work. So it's really special.
Well, it's also interesting to think about like the artist in her studio as often a solitary experience, but everything from like, you know, your studio practice to the things you're very much like in the community and creating a community around you with your characters. And that's another aspect of your practice that I find very inspiring. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question just so that people can find out what they want to know. What was the crossover from painting to animation like? Because you do kind of move between mediums and materials.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ambreen Butt, who was one of my mentors, I had made some paintings and she had said these would make great animations. And I remember thinking, I was just starting out in grad school, and I was like, I thought to myself, I'm a painter. Like, why would I make animations? That's what I did when I was a child. And then I mean, she's so smart. And when I was teaching, I didn't have as much time to make paintings. And I started making these weird little videos I called pleasure vision videos. And I had actually made some of them in high school, just recording stuff on TV and collaging it. And that's when I started learning that you could make animations on your iPad by like drawing on the iPad, or I could draw on green paper and then just paint in the parts I wanted and then green screen out the green in the back. And it was like cheap a cell animation. And it was really fun. And so it was a way for me to do a little bit of creative work while I was still maintaining the responsibility of like teaching these courses and whatnot. And I started to realize there's nothing worse than a painting that really wanted to be an animation. And like, it's just a grumpy painting that really wants to just like move and do something. And so then I started to realize, oh, like Pound Cake Man can do something different when he's like moving. And then I get to know him a different way when he's a sculptor, and I get to know him a different way when I come back to painting. Because after you go through the rotation of all these different media and you come back to painting, you understand your characters in a whole new way. You know, it's special.
Can you talk a little bit about what it means to be based in Houston as an artist who's showing around the country and world? Like how is it for you being in Houston?
I love Houston, Space City. It's like my city. So like I was supposed to be here. Like since I'm an alien. But I love Houston so much. Everyone I've met here, like within the, like I just feel so welcomed here. People are so friendly. And the artist community is so supportive, and there's so many opportunities to get funding for projects, and the art institutions genuinely, I feel like, want to help people. Like the first grant that I did here for, like I had done grants in other places that I lived, but I didn't really understand how to do it here. And so people offered to just sit me down and help me with it for the Snow People project. And I think that kind of kindness is just wonderful, you know, and the diversity of people here that we have is just such a gift, you know. I
completely agree.
I like it. And the food is really good. Like, food is really good here.
It's so good. And it's an accessible city, kind of like what you were saying. I feel that the arts organizations and artists that are based here are very accessible, and it's not always like that. So that I think it's a great city to be in as an artist. So this is kind of an interesting question with regard to people that you have helping you in your studio. I think students often don't realize how much goes, you know, so many artists work with assistants. And so the question is, are you required to like name them when you show the work? And like, is there any like aspect of giving credit to that, to assistants?
Oh, well, so like, let's see, Mikey, my assistant that's family owns the body shop, he played like half of Hippo Man. Like I green screened the Hippo Man's head on, and then he wore like a big purple suit and pretended to play the drums. So he got a credit in that video.
Right.
Project Row Houses, I tried to keep track of everyone who was involved because I made like kind of a making of video, and I put their credit information in it, like as many people as I could. And usually when I do things, if someone feels that they should get credit on the video, like they can talk to me and yeah, I want people to feel significant and important.
Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely.
You can't have your name on this. Like, but I think because, I mean, I have one assistant right now because, you know, and we're just doing virtual stuff. I mean, I try to acknowledge them as much as, like, if they work on something, I'm like, this is this cool thing that my assistant, Zachary, they've done, and I'm, you know, check it out, you know?
Yeah, that's great. What do you do outside of your studio to kind of like nurture your creativity? So other than making art, are there other hobbies you have or things that you do that kind of feed your work?
So lately, I mean, I go in like kind of seasons of things, like I'll get really into one thing. And for the last year, I guess because I was working on my first film, I got super into movies and trying to understand color and sound and why scripts do certain things or how camera angles work. And I think that that's changed how I look at painting, because everything is so intentional in film. Like you don't realize until you try to make a film, because you got to move the camera every time you have a different angle.
Right.
So, but I like exercising. I like dancing. I like this dance video game that I have, and I could just, if I'm not careful, I'll just play the dance video game all day. It's super fun. But I also, I don't know, like I spend a lot of time just writing. I think a lot about trying to, I don't know, gather my thoughts about stuff. So I do like writing, and I love hanging out with my husband. He always has lots of new toys to show me. He's a big toy collector.
Between the two of you, you have so many amazing sort of toys and dolls and just everything. One question I have with regard to the things that you make and your paintings, I know more with regard to the film, but how much planning, like I was asking you before we went live. What is it like to have these narratives? Like, do you ever start with a material and then from that the narrative kind of like gets resolved over time, or do you always start with the narrative and then build your characters to match the narrative?
So generally, I mean, it kind of is like a dance where sometimes, so I was taking Korean class and they taught us what snow person was in Korean, and it was like nun saram. And so, which actually translate, to snow person, not snowman. And I was like, oh, that's so nice that they have this gender neutral, the snow person. And that idea kind of inspired this, like, let's make snow people in the cosmic womb. So that was based kind of on an outside idea, bringing it in. But sometimes it is purely like, I'll get a piece of fabric or a material and I just want to understand it. Like Pound Cake Man just came out of like wanting to understand how to make a blobby thing punch, like understanding how to pound, and then once it was made, I fell in love with the character, so but in the end, my rule always is if it formally, like if I'm making a painting and there's a character in it that needs to be read to create a balance in the composition, something must have happened to that character that they need to now be read. Like, because I'm not gonna have the painting suffer, like, because I have some story, because I think that's what differentiates it from illustration, because illustration has to follow the rules of the story, generally, traditionally. I mean, there's illustrators that do whatever they want, but but yeah, that all that formal training on understanding like visual weight, like that's the most important thing for me, is to create that.
In your talk, I loved when you were kind of showing us your battle scene images and then showing the references, like everything from graphic novels, comic books to Uccello. I think it's so great to, especially for the students, to see that you pull from everywhere. And I like how it all synthesizes in your work. Two more questions, JooYoung, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
The next question is, do you read? And if so, what kinds of things are you reading now?
Well, I have a pretty bad ADHD or ADD, so it's hard for me to like sit and read a book, but I do listen to books while I work, which has been really, really helpful. So I've been listening to Michelle Obama's Becoming.
I listened to that also as an audiobook, and I was like in my car driving crying because there were so many parts of it that were so moving. So books on tape, that's great.
Yeah, I love having people read to me. I had a Teddy Ruxpin when I was a child, and I was a very repetitive, like if I like something, I want to do it a million times. So Teddy Ruxpin was awesome because you just flip the tape and put batteries in it and he'd tell me tons of stories. And so audiobooks, the other one that, I'm trying to think, there was another one that I was listening to. I might have to come back to that, but having something, I was listening to, when I was starting to do the project, I started listening to Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers' books on parenting. Because I felt like maybe there were things, I wanted to convey a good message about, not about scarcity with Spectre Force 5, that it wasn't about like, I've got to get mine for me. It's like, no, like you can't have someone else's thing because that's their life and their path, like you aren't them. And I read one of his books without listening to it. I was so fascinated, and then I just decided, what if I just kind of keep him on and he'll give me some insight how to guide this, because he always has a good way to say something that is young people can understand it, older people can understand it. So
well, I think you're like bringing it back to your work. Your work is so accessible from the young, spectrum all the way to adults. And I'm wondering, one of the students was asking, have you ever thought about getting government funding to have your work shown in facilities that could help children or help immigrants or, whatever the issue may be, because your work is so accessible?
Oh, well, that's really, I mean, it would be such an honor to like help create something that could be for a broader audience. I mean, I think that there's some freedoms I have doing it within the art I can do weird things, like, I don't know, like have the penguin dance way too much in the foreground. Like there's some scenes that like I do stuff that probably they'd be like, why is that there? Don't put that there. But if I had an opportunity to be able to contribute in that way, I would love to. Like
Right.
it'd be a dream come true.
Okay, so I'm going to sneak in one. There are two more questions because I'm going to end with a question that I like to ask at the end all the time. But this last question that snuck in just in the nick of time, would you be able to talk about some of the specific visual decisions you make in your work? This student, Jamie, responds to the exuberance and optimism in the work, but is also noticing and responding to the tension that exists in like some of your visual juxtapositions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're wondering if you can say a little bit about that.
Okay, so about the tension within the paintings, how there's like always that dynamic pull, I guess?
I think that's what he's referring to, that while there's all this joy and saturated color, there's also a lot like visually going on that creates a kind of tension. Jamie, if that's not what you're asking, you can text me and let me know, but I believe so. Some of the visual juxtapositions that are harder to look at but contextualize the joy. Oh, he said I did good. So that is the question.
Oh, cool. Well, I don't know. If everything is just like easy to look at, I don't know. It's kind of the type of movies that I like. Usually there's the tension in them. There's something like, even if they're visually like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, like that.
Very much.
Right?
And also Tom Petty, you know that video by Tom Petty, Don't Come Around Here No More.
Yeah, yes. That's a great example of it, where it's visually, it's got this energy, but then there's something that's just not right sometimes. And I think that in life, I don't know, that's part of life, is we have the parts that are like kind of fantastic and beautiful, and then there's also the stuff that we really struggle with that is difficult and uncomfortable. And I hope that I can find a way to bring those two things in. And I think Jack Kirby is the way that he twists tension with like the Fantastic Four and using Mr. Fantastic to like wrap around something. So there's all this pulling. I just love the challenge of trying to see if I can get that vortex going in the painting. So.
Well, I think you definitely succeed and do it well. Okay, last question. Can you tell us what a working day is like for you? Just an average working day in the studio. What's the day like? Like what time do you get there? Just any part of your day, we'd love to know.
Well, luckily my studio is actually the garage, so I just repainted it and then like moved everything in. So sometimes I can just shuffle in my pajamas. I have a list of things I have to do. Like I gotta play with my senior cat for 5 minutes. I gotta exercise, all those I gotta make sure that I eat. The thing with art with me is like, if I don't make a list, I'll just come here and work, and I won't do the normal human things. So it's an interesting balance of trying to make sure that I fulfill those needs, like, because my husband will have to come feed me if I get off track. Like it'll be a day and he'll be like, you haven't slept yet, things like that. But so sometimes I will go overnight and then I'll just keep working until I can't think. I'm like, and then I have to go to sleep. It's because sometimes I just get on a roll and it's just so exciting. So I might be in here for I don't know, 18 hours or something.
That's wonderful. Yes, pre-child, I remember those days. That's great. So you kind of work when you're inspired and then you take a break when you get tired?
Yeah, when I'm tired, but if I'm not inspired, but I'm awake and it's like time to work, you just have to work,
Right.
And one of the responsibilities is just like getting yourself inspired. So sometimes on my list, like I have to make some new backdrops, and I've been doing a lot. So on my list, it's like, get excited, like find a kernel in this that will make you want to get this done, you know? So I'm always trying to find a way to trick myself into like getting things done, and just having faith in the fact that we'll get there. But it's a lot of just like listening to books or listening to music really loud or watching the Muppet Show and working. I listen to a ton of movies in here. So like Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi, like anything that'll just boost that energy, and then just make a ton of stuff. Keep a lot of lists to make sure that I don't remake things. That can happen sometimes if I don't, because there's some boxes and boxes. And to take time to actually, the thing that I struggle with sometimes is just making sure in my day that I stop and actually like look at the object that I made and be like, oh, this is a great thing. We should just like enjoy the fact that this thing exists now. So yeah.
It's interesting to hear, and I'm particularly interested in the part where you're talking about making lists and things, because I think as artists, we all have these like ways of keeping ourselves on track and organizational tools that people don't see when they just look at the finished work. And so that's really interesting to hear.
Oh yeah, I used to think I could keep it all in my head. Now it's like I have, let me see. Woo! So for the film project, like I was showing earlier when we were talking,
yes.
They're just every single scene, every single backdrop, every single prop, it's all listed out, so I know exactly where things need to be. And it makes me feel excited about it, because I just have to make sure that that scene gets done, or I have a log.
It's great to see how much goes into every single, it's not like you're just throwing in last minute ideas. I mean, this is stuff that's very thought through and planned. And like you said, every time you move the camera, that has to be like thought through. So I love seeing that binder. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that what I learned from Laurel Sparks, my professor in undergrad and grad school, I followed her into the grad program. She told me that the more organized you are, then you're free to be creative. So the more that I am able to have a structure of ideas, if I want to rebel against something,
right,
I already have a structure where it's like, okay, this will work, but hey, let's try it this way too. So you can be even more creative, I think, when you have a plan, because then you have something to rebel against. And artists are really good at rebelling against things. If we don't have a plan, I think sometimes we can get really, at least for me, I can get overwhelmed if I don't have a plan, because then I don't know where to start, what to work on. I just need to look at the 5 things that I can do today, instead of the whole project. But if I don't know where to look, I'm gonna get overwhelmed. So it's finding the way that you can get your chunk and get it done and feel good about your day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I feel like, it's so interesting to hear how we see the end product, but we don't always know the behind the scenes. So that's really interesting to hear. And thank you for spending this time with us, JooYoung. We're so grateful. And I know there are a number of students that you're still going to meet with later today, and they're excited. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This has been so great.
And I love that you're in the Houston community. That gives me energy just thinking about it. So
yeah, once things are, the pandemic is contained and I have volunteer days, hangout days, I can't wait to have people come by and make puppets, and we can have a robot dance party.
Oh, I would love to be a volunteer member. That sounds fun. Thank you, JooYoung. We're going to sign off now, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.